This is EmoNews, and today I spoke to Kenton Sejan, better known as Kenty, an employee of Royal Caribbean.
My name is Kenton Sejan, better known as Kenty. I'm an entertainer and a performer. And currently I work with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line International.
Tell us about life on the cruise ship during this pandemic.
Yeah, so I was on the ship for a little bit over 2 months after the pandemic actually hit hard. Yeah, 2 months we was anchored outside of Barbados. A lot of islands didn't want the cruise ships to dock, so Barbados allowed us. So let me shout out to Barbados as well for allowing us to dock outside the waters. And we stayed there for about two months, a little bit over 2 months, before we actually started going to pick up other crew members to take them home. Life on the cruise ship is different in general, but when we had to deal with the pandemic, it became even more strange. We dropped off our guests, on the 14th of March. And since then, we had no guests on board the ship, so it was mainly crew, which for the crew seemed to be nice because, not having to deal with the guests was easy, but it really wasn't that easy because everybody had to be quarantined, everybody had to be isolated to ensure that there was no spread of the CV virus. And that was tough because the cruise ship takes very, very, very strong measures when it comes to the safety of its guests and crew. And I must commend Royal Caribbean for doing an excellent job. We had to be tested and checked our temperature. They had to check our temperature twice a day, every day. Everybody was isolated, so two people was in a room unless if you is a registered couple. And by registered I mean marriage, not girlfriend or boyfriend. You have to be married and can legally show that to be in a room together. So everybody who was not a registered couple was not in a room together. Everybody was completely isolated, and we did do our mandatory 14 days quarantine, where you had to be in the room. You couldn't get out of the room to socialize or anything like that for 14 days. You had to stay in the room, order room service in the room, and everybody was on. It was just a different experience on board that particular ship. Scheduled to come home on the 28th of March, but then the government shut down the borders, and then I had to stay on board the ship, which I cannot say that it was uncomfortable, but it was difficult knowing that we're dealing with a pandemic. And I think it was more stressful to me wanting to be with my family rather than being away from them. And that in itself was a little stressful. But it wasn't horrible. The company took extreme measures to make sure that everybody was safe, and that was the most important thing. Everybody was safe, everybody was healthy,
So when the news came that the government and the cruise industry, they are putting things in place to bring you all home, how did that make you feel?
Well, I was very, very excited about that, knowing that I was going to get the opportunity to go home. Furthermore, when we found out that the company decided to take us home, and I had to evade paying all those air taxes, and I had like a lot of luggage, so I didn't want to have to go to the airport with all that luggage. So it was very good and convenient for me, as a matter of fact.
Were you afraid that you contracted this virus?
In the beginning, I was a little bit nervous, but the way the company took care of the business, it made me a little more relaxed because everybody was actually isolated. So I was in my own room, everybody else was in their own room. No one was sharing a room, so it was a little more, and then it was mandatory for everybody to wear a mask and sanitize all the time, your hands. So I wasn't worried.
What advice would you give to the other crew members out there waiting to come home?
Well, the best advice I can give is to just be patient, because we are dealing with a pandemic that is relatively new. Most doctors are still trying to figure out what, how to control the pandemic, and then the government is taking extra precaution. Most times the cruise ship cannot get into a port. It's not because the cruise ship company doesn't want you to be home. It's because the authorities of that particular country is not allowing them to get there. So I would say to the people on board that is still, probably wondering when they're going to be home, just have a little bit of patience. And it's not the cruise ship, it's always the government of that particular country that is taking precautionary measures, and it just taking a little bit more time than it actually should. So just have a little bit of patience. That's what I would say. I want to say thank you to the government and the medical professionals who, as soon as we got off from the ship, we were taken straight to the quarantine facilities, and we were very well taken care of. Thirdly, I would like to thank the caterers who did an excellent job in preparing, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was always very good because, one, being on the ship, you get a lot of different nationalities, types of food, so you don't get your local type of food all the time. So it was nice to be home and get local food. All the crew members that were in the facility with me, that made it very simple for us to go through the process, and it was very different. The situation were not the easiest, but we had each other back, and we try to make sure that we try to comfort each other, and we're home already, so let's just go through it. And I feel my heart. I've got to say, oh, how I suffer, oh, how I try. I give up my pride just to be by her side. And whosoever tried to take the love that's mine, I'll never say no other words, no other words. Yeah. But darling, how I love you. I gave all I had, but they tried to take you, and now I'm so mad. But that's the way to love. That's how I feel my heart. I've got to say, oh, how I suffer, oh, how I try. I gave up my pride just to be by her side. And whosoever tried to take the love that's really, really mine, I'll never say no other word, no other word.